Watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today, we'll tell you how the Carthage School Board is looking to put more substitute teachers to work.
Cold, crisp, and dry on a Wednesday, but by the time we wrap it up and we talk about what's coming our way Thursday, we're liable to see snow on the ground on this shot. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, the January 6, 2001 proved a tragic day for Capitol Police in Washington, D.C. The Capitol Police Chief opens up about the experience almost 1 year later. All that and more coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. U.S. Marshals are looking for an Oklahoma woman who is considered a most wanted suspect. In November, Heather Griffith pled guilty related to an assault with a deadly weapon case. Authorities say she stabbed a woman at a hotel in Grove. She was sentenced to 1 year supervised probation. She's now wanted for violating that probation. Griffith was last seen in Grove, and authorities say she could still be there. If you have any information, you should contact law enforcement. Kansas reports a record 7-day average for new confirmed and probable COVID-19 cases. State Health Department data shows Kansas reported an average of 3,134 new COVID-19 cases a day for the 7 days ending yesterday. That's 13% higher than the previous record set in mid-November of 2020. Carthage School Board approves a plan aimed at hiring more substitute teachers. Under the new plan, retired teachers and paraprofessionals would see a pay increase of $20 per day of substitute teaching. The district is also hiring up to 12 full-time substitutes who will be available when the district needs them. And they're making substitute pay consistent across the district.
COVID has made the matter more obvious. And we've always had problems finding subs, but COVID has kind of taken away maybe some of the veterans who would come and sub for us. And just the idea that being around a bunch of kids might make them a little nervous. But hopefully this will allow us an opportunity to bring some people back.
Retired support staff, custodians, and food service workers will also see a pay increase for filling in those positions as a substitute. Carthage's Mark Twain Elementary said farewell to its longtime principal, Laura Rosenthal. Rosenthal started as a teacher at the school 55 years ago. After 21 years of teaching, she became principal for 34 years. She says she plans to spend retirement traveling and with family, but she's going to miss working at the school.
I think I'll miss every day seeing the staff and the students and the camaraderie. We're more like a family. I've always tried to have it be just like a family here, and that's what we are, and I will miss that.
Rosenthal has won several awards over the years, including Carthage's Citizen of the Year. Crawford County Habitat for Humanity is accepting applications for home ownership. The organization builds houses for families in need. The application period runs until February 28th. Applicants must have lived in Crawford County for at least 1 year. If you're interested in applying, you can download an application online and email it to Habitat. We've provided a link on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Retail giant Target is offering support to area nonprofits, including Joplin's Connect to Culture. But they need your help. C2C and a handful of other organizations have been nominated for the Target Circle Community Giving Program. It's a way for Target to make donations to local nonprofits, but the way the donations are divided is up to the community. Target Circle members can vote for an organization, and the one with the most votes gets the highest percentage of funds. We've provided a link to the voting on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Well, you often see street power boxes in many cities ruined by ugly graffiti, but not in one northern Germany town, thanks to a crafty grandma. Instead of just being upset about a vandalized electrical box in front of her house, 81-year-old Inge Hess transformed it into a work of art using spray cans. And now she wanders through the city of Lehmann, Germany with her cart, painting the boxes with beautiful images. Everyone there knows her as the graffiti grandma. She even got a permit from the electric company to do beautiful things to their boxes.
Well, thank you. That was going to be my question, because I don't think anybody can turn down how great she makes them look, and obviously a very artistic woman. But I was thinking, I wonder what the power company thinks about this. They're on board. That's great. How cool would that be? I would love to know her background too, about how she where she developed that skill from.
I wonder if she's like a former art teacher or something. Who knows?
Hey, maybe in her younger days, she was doing something else.
Graffiti.
Now
She
she
has a good handle on those cans.
And now she's putting the skill to good use. No, that's true. They look really cool.
That's neat.
All right. Tanya, speaking of beautiful sights, how about outside of 7th and Rangeline? We're still, say about 25 minutes away from sunrise, but going to be a gorgeous, gorgeous start. It's going to be a cold start, though, because I want to point out our weather trend. It was actually warmer at midnight than what it is now, even with the sun coming up. Look at that, we were still sitting mid to high 40s, and then we had a cold front that's been moving through all morning long. How about Iola now dropping down to 19 degrees? These are not wind chills. These are actual temperatures. And earlier, everybody along and south of I-44 was above the freezing mark, now dropping down to 30 in Miami, 27 in Neosho, and 25 in Joplin. Skywatch Storm Tracker, we are clear. Of course, sometimes the cloud cover helps us a little bit. But another thing to point out about this air mass, very, very dry. You can tell there's no precipitation above this thing as it moves from north to south. The precipitation we're looking at is now beginning to shoot over the Rockies. We've got a couple little strays that are leading the way. This is the main system that we've been watching develop here for the last couple of days. We had that split upper low yesterday, and half of it took off here, half of it said, I'm just going to wait and sweep through the Midwest. And so that's what's on our way. By the time we get to the afternoon, sunny skies, temperatures mid-30s, so now about 7 to 8 degrees cooler than anticipated. But then we get ready for tonight into early tomorrow morning. Develops out to the northwest. Evening commute will be fine. If you're going to be out past midnight into early Thursday morning, let's keep an eye on the radar. We begin with flurries. Then as we work down to the south, the snow lessens, but this band right here, that's got the capability of dropping anywhere from 1.5 inches to 2 inches of rain. And then as it moves through, it actually revamps. When we look at our snow totals here in just a second, you're going to find that we luck out just a little bit. It is going to stick on the ground, though, because our temperatures are going to be so cold Thursday night into Friday morning. Tanya, do want to point out this is not the wet, nasty snow that we all hate to drive in and whatnot. Still, I want everybody defensive driving. But this will be more light, fluffy snow.
I like that, light and fluffy. Up next, rock climbing has grown in popularity over the years, and with that popularity comes a rise in related injuries. We'll look at how they're treating those injuries. And later, we'll tell you how a dog saved its owner by leading the police to the scene of a crash. You don't want to miss this. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. According to a study from the U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, pregnant women who receive a COVID vaccine do not face an increased risk of preterm births or low-weight babies. Researchers looked at about 46,000 expectant mothers. They studied both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines and its impact on pregnant women who were vaccinated during their second or third trimester. The scientists say the findings were consistent, and they did not find a link between the vaccines and those conditions. Researchers note they did not have enough data to analyze possible risk when it came to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. CDC recommends all pregnant women get vaccinated. Well, some big coronavirus updates from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on a couple of fronts. The agency is updating its isolation guidance for infected people. Experts say they should get a rapid COVID test near the end of a 5-day isolation period. If the test is positive, you should remain isolated until 10 days after the onset of symptoms. CDC faced pressure to include a testing component in its new shortened isolation guidance. It says the new guidance focuses on the period when a person is most infectious. But also on Tuesday, the CDC shared evidence that the Omicron variant is up to 3 times more infectious than Delta. Study by UK and Japanese health officials shows immunity from vaccines or antibodies is not always strong enough to stop the transmission of Omicron. Well, South Florida Hospital had to shut down an entire department because of a COVID-19 outbreak. Holy Cross Health says labor and delivery is closed down until further notice because of a critical staffing shortage. The NICU and postpartum departments remain open. South Florida has seen a surge in COVID-19 cases fueled by holiday travel and the contagious Omicron variant. The number of COVID patients at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami nearly doubled in a week to 414. Almost 10 million people lead fist jam, and free solo their way to the top of rocks, boulders, and mountains. Rock climbing has seen a surge in popularity, inspired by both an increased number of indoor gyms and young people searching for an extreme sport to challenge their bodies and minds. Rock climbing even debuted in last summer's Olympic Games, but with any sport comes injuries. And as Dow Quick reports, now rock climbing has its own rehab.
Chase James climbs 2 to 3 times a week, putting his entire body weight on his fingertips and toes.
Just this part of my finger is on the rock.
But with this unique sport comes unique injuries.
All of a sudden, just bam, heard a pop, and I knew that I had popped a tendon in my hand.
That's one of the most common injuries for climbers. Fellow climber and physical therapist Jason Hooper is using new therapies to get climbers back out on the rock wall faster.
The rehab process traditionally can be a little too one-dimensional and not hit on the extreme levels of training that a climber might need.
This harness with pneumatic pressure allows injured climbers to mimic finger positions of climbers without their full body weight.
With the push of a button, now I've just taken 30 pounds off. So then when they go and they hold on to that, that's actually going to obviously make them more weightless, and it's going to take away that injury risk.
Another machine measures a person's strength in a single joint and tracks improvement.
Backwards.
Chase spent 3 months rehabbing his fingers, strengthening his hands, and perfecting his form at home. Now he's back at it.
This is a portable hangboard, and it allows you to warm up your fingers before you climb.
Making sure he takes time to warm up before heading up another wall.
We've seen how risky it is, but rock climbing is a great form of exercise. A study in the British Journal of Sports Medicine found that as rock climbing is as good for cardio as running an 8-minute mile. Experts say it can be effective treatment for anxiety and depression. This is due to a heightened sense of self-esteem, accomplishment, and feeling of self-control. And that was Dow Quick reporting. Well, James Webb Space Telescope has finished one of the most high-risk maneuvers on its mission to find new clues about the origin of the universe. The $10 billion telescope has fully deployed all 5 layers of its tennis court-sized sun shield. NASA says each plastic sheet is roughly as thin as a human hair. The shield will protect the telescope from the sun's high temperatures. The successful deployment of the sun shield means the telescope is most of the way through a very high-stakes part of the journey. If the mission continues successfully, the telescope should be sending back its first images in about 6 months.
Which seems like an eternity, and the reason I say that is we've been talking about it for months now, up to the lead up with the Christmas launch, and it feels like hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. So that'll be amazing.
And they said the shield is as thin as a human hair, you know.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like
I was watching a scientist talk about like how delicate that they have to be while working around it.
I wonder why they decided to make it that thin. Was it for weight, or I mean, because you're in space.
I think also to make it, because of the size of it, to be able to fold it up. What did we refer to it yesterday? Outer space origami?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
I think that was that's not my phrase. That was somebody way smarter than me, which is about 99.9% of the Earth. Current conditions over 7th and Rangeline, where I think we're going to have a different tune by the time we take this shot tomorrow. We'll actually see some snow on the ground. But for the time being today, it's just making sure stay warm. 25 degrees is where we stand in Joplin, with a wind chill that has now dipped down to 13 degrees. Let's roll 17 in Pittsburgh as far as what it feels like, 16 in Chautauqua, and 20 in Miami. Now, these are the actual temperatures, but everybody's pretty much fallen below the freezing mark as the cold front continues to penetrate from the north. Remember, this cold front is dry. We have wind chill advisories out to our west, not associated with the snow, but associated with the dangerously cold conditions that this is going to feed us, as the jet stream not only brings the cold air, but also, too, this is what's forming out in the Pacific Northwest and now beginning to shoot a little bits of snow over the Rockies. This afternoon, sunny skies up into the mid-30s, and then we get to the interesting stuff. That will be late tonight through Thursday morning. Here it is, beginning with the majority of the snow working its way from the northwest section all the way down south of I-44 and lasting, till say about 8, 9 o'clock now in the morning, 8, 9 a.m. Our snow tracker will show you little bands that shoot through right here, and that's where you could see 2.5 inches. It tapers off then as you move down to the south of I-44. But here's what's really interesting about this is as it works its way toward us, we find ourselves just on the far southern tip, and then it revamps, reloads, and makes its way all the way to the east coast. So look at this new snow accumulation. Just that U-shape that's right along with the jet stream. That's pretty impressive as far as geographic area this is able to cover, and it's going to stick around through Friday. Then it'll all melt off with 50s on Saturday. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
How would you?
Law enforcement around Washington, D.C. is ramping up security ahead of the one-year anniversary of the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. Meanwhile, the U.S. Capitol Police Chief says the trauma of what happened that day is still very real for many of his officers. Paula Reed shows us what some of them have faced since the insurrection.
Just days before the anniversary of the January 6th insurrection, U.S. Capitol Police Chief Tom Manger addressed the current state of his embattled department.
The United States Capitol Police, as an organization, is stronger and better prepared to carry out its mission today than it was before January 6th of last year.
A report last month by Inspector General Michael Bolton found that only about a quarter of the 104 recommended changes to the U.S. Capitol Police following the January 6th riot have been implemented. But today, Manger said 60 other reforms are in progress.
There was no question in my mind, looking at all of the recommendations, that intelligence, operational planning, and getting our civil disturbance unit up to where it needs to be were the three biggest issues, and those were the ones that we worked on first, and those are the ones that, frankly, are largely completed.
Still, the department faces daunting challenges. At least 4 January 6th responders have died by suicide over the last year. The department also has not been able to fully address staffing issues. It has lost over 130 officers through retirement or resignation after January 6th, and the force is still about 400 officers short of where it needs to be, and those who remain still have scars from the attack.
This whole past year has been very difficult.
Sergeant Aquilino Gunnell, a 15-year veteran of the force, was assigned to guard the west entrance to the Capitol on January 6th. Today, he reflected on that haunting experience.
So the magnitude of what we encountered was something like I never experienced myself, not even when I was overseas in combat.
Gunnell was out for months because of injuries sustained during the insurrection and still grapples with trauma from that day.
When I returned to the Capitol on November 3rd, I hesitated before going in, to be honest. And for a moment, I thought that it's going to be gut-wrenching to even take the first step out of my car.
Capitol Police say there is no specific or credible threat related to the anniversary of January 6th and that the department would be able to fend off another mob-like attack. We'll be back with this morning's 4-state hero right after this.
It's time to honor today's 4-state hero, Dwayne Spicer, who served in the U.S. Army in 1968 and 1969. The Webb City native was stationed in Vietnam. We thank you, Specialist Dwayne Spicer, our 4-state hero. A dog helped save her owner's life after a car crash in New Hampshire by leading police to the scene. John Hawks caught up with the man and his canine guardian angel at their home in Vermont.
Tinsley is a year-old Shiloh Shepherd. Late Monday night, she was seen running on the Memorial Bridge on Interstate 89 from Lebanon to White River Junction. Police tried to corral her, but she kept running away, leading them north before stopping near these damaged guardrails.
Almost alerting them to what was off the roadway, which they discovered a truck which had been overturned with 2 gentlemen that were ejected from the vehicle.
Cam Laundry was behind the wheel of the overturned Ford truck.
She's my little guardian angel, you know. She's just, it's a miracle, you know, how she has that kind of intelligence and do what she did.
Hartford EMTs credit the speed of their response to Tinsley.
The whole time when we were starting our patient care, it sat there nice and calm right next to its owner.
At that time, there was some hypothermia had set in. It's unclear how long they were out of the vehicle for. The dog also was wet, so you could tell that it had been outside for a little bit.
Responders could see that Laundrie and his passenger were injured.
We shook up, didn't know what was happening, and next thing you know, the cops were there, and it was all because of her.
The two men were taken to Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center to be treated. After Laundrie was released, he went home to spend time with his guardian angel.
Of course, she never leaves my side, so that we're always together, in that truck that got wrecked, and she's always my co-pilot, and she's always with me.
So how will the grateful human reward Tinsley?
She gets spoiled all the time. She'll get some venison, probably burger tonight, and maybe some back straps with it.
She seems to be taking it all in stride and is as playful as ever, running around the yard.
What a great dog. Definitely man's best friend. Another half hour of news and weather is just ahead. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, Disney opens the latest chapter of the Star Wars universe with the book of Boba Fett. I've seen the first one. And when people think of sumo wrestling, they usually think of men, and now a growing number of girls are muscling their way in on the traditional men's sport. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
It's time. The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:31. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Carthage School Board approves a plan aimed at hiring more substitute teachers. Under the new plan, retired teachers and paraprofessionals would see a pay increase of $20 per day of substitute teaching. The district is also hiring up to 12 full-time substitutes who will be available when the district needs them. And they're making substitute pay consistent across the district.
COVID has made the matter more obvious. And we've always had problems finding subs, but COVID has kind of taken away maybe some of the veterans who would come and sub for us. And just the idea that being around a bunch of kids might make them a little nervous. But hopefully this will allow us an opportunity to bring some people back.
Retired support staff, custodians, and food service workers will also see a pay increase for filling in these positions as a substitute. Carthage's Mark Twain Elementary said farewell to its longtime principal, Laura Rosenthal. Rosenthal started as a teacher at the school 55 years ago, and after 21 years of teaching, she became principal for 34 years. She says she plans to spend retirement traveling and with family, but she's going to miss working at the school.
I think I'll miss every day seeing the staff and the students and the camaraderie. We're more like a family. I've always tried to have it be just like a family here, and that's what we are, and I will miss that.
Rosenthal has won several awards over the years, including Carthage's Citizen of the Year. Building Legos can stimulate creativity among kids, and that's exactly what the Museum of Creativity in Fort Scott is going for with its Lego Club. The club is open for kids ages 7 to 18. It features a different theme each week that kids can build around. The top builds each week will be displayed in the museum.
Today we're doing Lego Club, and the challenge is to build a park playground type thing. So it's interesting to see the different directions each kid takes with it, and fun to see how they create those with the different pieces.
The club meets every Tuesday from 4 to 5 p.m. It costs $1 per child. An assistant police chief in Washington state was disciplined for displaying Nazi insignia on his office door. The display was reported in September of 2020, and the assistant police chief was suspended for 2 weeks. And now the Kent City mayor is calling for his resignation. Natalie Swaby reports.
We're at Kent City Hall, where there is a city council meeting happening through those doors tonight, and I am told there will be a statement made about this issue. Now today, the mayor and police chief declined on-camera interviews, but the city did issue a statement saying it takes the allegations that were made against the assistant chief seriously and stands behind the independent investigations and discipline that followed. This photo, part of an independent investigation, shows what Assistant Chief Derek Kammerzell's office door looked like in September of 2020, a Nazi insignia placed above his name. In addition to the display, there were also allegations that he made jokes about the Holocaust. Kammerzell, who began a career with Kent Police in 1994, also has a military background. According to internal affairs documents, some in the police department would refer to him as the German general because of his last name and ancestry. When he was questioned about the Nazi insignia, he allegedly replied, "I stuck it on my door as part of this ongoing joke thing. I did not know this thing was associated with a Nazi thing."
The insignia that this gentleman put on his door was an SS insignia. And the SS insignia is a symbol of hatred and bigotry that we as a community, and certainly we hope that the police, are stamping out instead of fostering.
Karen Triger, a volunteer in Seattle's Jewish community, is also an author who shared her family's own Holocaust story. And she speaks about it with audiences around the world. That's what she was doing today.
Part of our task in this world is to remember the stories of those who died, who were murdered in Nazi Germany.
She wants Assistant Chief Kammerzell to know the symbols he once had on display are, for her, a reminder of so much pain.
If we don't recognize the symbols of hatred, and if we don't recognize them and put them in the right place, which is not on your door, it normalizes it. And I would like him to know that it's not the world that I want to live in.
We did obtain an internal affairs document that says the police chief ordered cultural sensitivity training for the assistant chief, and he has returned back to work.
Well, according to city documents, Kammerzell verbally apologized during his pre-disciplinary hearing. Well, despite being born just 15 minutes apart, twins Eileen and Alfredo Trujillo have completely different birthdays, with each baby arriving in the world on a different day, month, and year. This is cool. At 11:45 p.m. on New Year's Eve, 2021, Fatima Madrigal gave birth to her son Alfredo Antonio Trujillo in Salinas, California. 15 minutes later, as the clock struck midnight and hospital staff rang in the new year, Eileen arrived. The twins will celebrate their birthday on the same day, according to their mother. They may disagree about that later, though. According to the Natividad Medical Center, where the twins were born, there are about 120,000 twin births in the U.S. every year, but twins with different birthdays are rare. Obvious reason why. Some estimate the chance of twins being born in different years as 1 in 2 million.
It's interesting because as they grow up and they get closer to those teenage years and whatnot, Alfredo will hang that over Eileen and, remind her that I'll be 16 before you will, and then they'll get to be my age, and Eileen's going to be looking at Alfredo going, "Ha ha, old man, I'm younger than you."
Well, and it's great for the parents too, because they got that tax deduction in 2021, and they got a new one added in 2022.
I never thought about that.
And they got the New Year's baby on top of it from the hospital.
Your twin, Carrie, our camera operator, is a twin. Same day?
Yeah, she's 2 minutes older, and she represented my face.
2 minutes older, and see, he still gets thrown in Carrie's face. All right, Tanya, we've got a split here as far as our pressure system goes, and what we're looking at is the developed low that we had in the dark color that's now forming and headed our way. Got split by high pressure there in light blue, force everything toward the Great Lakes. But here's what's interesting about this. You can take this high pressure, and that's going to be your line as far as how it forces that snow right by us. If this thing would recede a little bit, we'd probably get out scot-free, but that is not going to be the case. So this is what we're paying attention to as it develops, beginning to shoot over the Rockies. There's a secondary one that split, caused quite a mess over the Great Lakes. Live look over Chicago here. You can see plenty of snow there on the rooftops and whatnot. They're accustomed to that. That's no big deal for them. Look at this beautiful shot over 7th and Rangeline. A little cloud cover providing us with wonderful colors. It is cold though, 25 degrees with a wind chill that's now dropped down to 13. Large part is our shift in the wind. So let's go to the 7-day forecast. We'll work backwards here. We'll get up into about the mid-30s today with plenty of sunshine. But of course, our key factor is our snow that is going to arrive early tomorrow morning. And that gives you an idea about how that thing sweeps in. So what we're looking at for our snow tracker is anywhere from 2 to 2.5 inches, where you see the darker blue right there. It goes from about 1/2 inch down to a dusting down to the southern portion of I-44. And our timing, late tonight. If you're going to be out past midnight, yeah, keep your eye on the radar. But it's really tomorrow morning's commute that we want to keep in mind. Not going to be the wet, yucky snow, if you will. Should be more light and fluffy, so hopefully a little bit easier to drive in. But let's make sure we get out the door in plenty of time tomorrow. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome to
Had one of our warmest Decembers on record. Now here we are talking about snow moving in for tomorrow. Our question to you on the Insta poll, what's your favorite season? And right now, 41% of you are all about leaf color. Whether it's the changing or whether them's coming back. Fall with 42%, spring with 32%, winter only coming in at 6%. In Japan, professional sumo remains one of the last bastions of male-dominated sports. A number of recent scandals have changed attitudes towards the sport recently. Don Riddle shows us how a number of young girls are trying to wrestle their way inside.
This is sumo, the national sport of Japan. Their wrestlers are hard to miss with their top knots and iconic loincloths, their hulking bodies and high-impact bouts. It's an ancient sport dating back more than 1,000 years, and through all that time, very little has changed. As a professional sport, women have always been banned.
Some people think that sumo is just for men, but I want other girls to know that it's really fun and they should definitely give it a go.
12-year-old Nikori Hara loves sumo, but her opportunities to train and compete are limited. So, girls like Nikori also compete in judo and wrestling, often sparring against boys as well as girls.
Men can become professional sumo wrestlers, but that's not an option for women at the moment. It would be great if the same opportunities could exist for women in the future.
But changing attitudes in Japan mean there might now be a future for girls and women in sumo. Sena Kajiwara has been learning sumo since she was 8 years old. And she's not just preparing to knock over her opponents in the dohyo, she's also ready to topple the barriers to entry of a male-dominated sport.
There are some people who don't get why I do sumo, but I'm not bothered by what they think. If you want to do sumo, you should do it. I think if we get more girls and women in sumo, then we'll be able to level the playing field and make a living from sumo. I hope that happens.
With Consumer Watch right after this.
Good luck trying to find.
The Great Resignation continues. A record number of people are leaving their jobs as companies struggle to hire workers. Michael George reports.
I quit my job in February of 2021.
Last year, Gabby Iannello decided a corporate job in real estate wasn't for her, and she wanted to try something new.
You know, with the world changing, it put a lot of perspective of like, life is short, so I might as well try now while I don't have kids, I don't have a mortgage.
The experience of resigning led to her own company called Corporate Quitter, where she offers podcasts and consulting, and more people are joining her. The Labor Department says 4.5 million Americans quit their jobs in November, a new record. Many of those resignations are coming in the restaurant industry, trucking, and healthcare.
People don't want to always settle for the same thing that they might have settled for in employment in the past. Now we know that many jobs can be done remotely. Now we know that there can be a higher degree of flexibility.
Bankrate economist Mark Hamrick says people are quitting in the middle of a worker shortage. There are 10.6 million job openings in the U.S., according to the Labor Department.
The challenge for 2022 is going to be matching the supply and demand for workers.
Any advice for people who are really close to doing what you did? They're thinking about it.
Experiment before you actually take the leap. You're never going to know what you like or if you're even cut out for it until you actually try.
Iannello says her leap is leading to success in business and in life. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Rising coronavirus cases could bring relief to drivers across the country. Prices at the pump could start falling from October and November highs, with demand dropping each day after the holidays. On Monday, demand for gas was down more than 6% from last week, which was the weakest demand that it had been since Memorial Day of 2021. Experts say it's too early to tell if this trend will continue, with predictions saying the national average price per gallon will be back up to $4 by the spring. We'll be right back with more after this, but first, let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell.
A new story from the Star Wars galaxy, now streaming, and our man Rick Demigella has a look at the Book of Boba Fett.
Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect.
Tamura Morrison is back as one of Star Wars' most iconic characters in The Book of Boba Fett.
Left for dead. The sands of Tatooine.
The Book of Boba Fett is kind of a dream come true for anybody that has fallen in love with this character since he was first introduced in The Empire Strikes Back. We get to understand a little bit of where this character is coming from. We get a much more humanized interpretation of who Boba Fett is.
Why speak of conflict when cooperation can make us all rich?
Boba Fett has become a crime lord, supplanting the killed Jabba the Hutt and Bib Fortuna, and he has taken the throne on Tatooine. And he's joined by Fennec Shand, who is played by Ming-Na Wen, who is this killer assassin who can take out anybody.
You all accrued wealth and riches under Jabba. You can again. With this man.
There is this old gunslinger kind of attitude, and it's wonderful, you know, and proven storytelling.
I am not a bounty hunter. I'm the crime lord now.
In Hollywood, I'm Rick Damigella.
Now, warning for you binge watchers out there, there's only one episode out right now, but it's very good, and there's also a little behind-the-scenes look about how a character that was on screen for a total of 6 minutes and had 4 lines in Empire Strikes Back, that's it, has actually become one of the more popular characters of the Star Wars universe. Our temperatures right now dropping throughout the morning. We're as low as 18 in Iola. We're all below the freezing mark now along and south of I-44. We were able to cling to some mid-30s earlier, but once it's set in from the north, it is here to stay, dropping wind chills down as low as 13 degrees. This weather graph will give you a really good idea about where we were at the midnight hour before the bottom dropped out. It's almost like 2 cold fronts we've got coming at us. This one today that plummeted us down from about 47 at midnight all the way down to the 20s right now. And even with the sunshine, not a whole lot of warm up. Be able to make it up into the mid-30s. More importantly, let's talk about tomorrow morning as it works in from the northwest. Starts with flurries, and then by the time we get into the early Thursday morning hours, we have legitimate snowfall on our hands to go with dangerously cold temperatures. The snow tracker will have a couple bands that will be between, say 1.5 and 2 inches. And then as you progress down to the south, it becomes more about 1/2 inch to a dusting. But the snow is going to stick around for a little bit because we're not going to get above freezing again until we get to Friday afternoon. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
At a time.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. CDC says Omicron is now responsible for 95% of all COVID-19 cases nationwide. Experts say the new strain does not cause more severe illness, but the number of people infected means it's just as dangerous as earlier forms of the virus. COVID hospitalizations have reached over 100,000 in the U.S., on par with last summer's Delta surge. Last night, former President Donald Trump announced he canceled a news conference that was scheduled to be held tomorrow on the 1-year anniversary of the Capitol Hill riot. The former president was expected to discuss the riot as well as the ongoing congressional investigation into that day's events. Prosecutors say they are no longer pursuing a criminal case against former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. In October, the ex-governor was charged with forcibly touching his assistant, Brittany Camiso, in 2020. Como was to be arraigned on Friday, but yesterday the Albany County DA said that while Camiso's story is credible, he could not prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Let's check in with Michael with a final look at your forecast.
Remember, today is going to be chilly, only up into the mid-30s, and then let's all be prepared for tomorrow morning's commute as flurries turn into legitimate snowfall. And snow is not going to go anywhere because it remains cold. The snow tracker, I mean, we're not talking overly impressive numbers, and if we can keep that snow light and fluffy, that'll be beneficiary to our roads. And we can sit back and look forward to the 50s for the weekend.
Well, grab a pair of binoculars and head outside because it's National Bird Day. What types of birds you typically see depends on factors like climate,
Stellar sea eagle,
nearby geographic features, and the time of the year. And if you want to attract more birds to your yard, identify the species that live in your area and then look up what they eat and stock a bird feeder with what is most likely to attract them. According to Born Free USA, there are almost 10,000 different species of birds in the world. About 12% of them are in danger of facing extinction. Pretty cool. Bird is the word.
Always on the lookout for the red-tailed hawk. Love that thing. Thank you so much for letting us put the good in your morning. Back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.
You guys are here early.
The Texas